Hey everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me again this weekend. Okay, we're going to cover in this week's video, we're going to cover Bitcoin, Ethereum, indexes, and a handful of stocks that are catching my attention on the models page. So let's dive right into it here. We're looking at Bitcoin right now, and this cluster of 2 standard deviation up days has been sitting there for the past few weeks. We've been targeting this time period for what feels like a very long time. And we're just on the cusp of starting to see this expected pump. Whenever we see these red bars in this lane, that means it's the probability of a 2 standard deviation up day, not just a 1 standard deviation up day. And to see what that means, you can click on the information button here, and a 2 standard deviation up day is really measured over the past 5 days from close to close. And 2 standard deviations is plus 20%, okay? So this isn't a promise, this isn't an expectation, this is a forecast, and there's a probability associated with it. The probability, as I mouse over, is 45% that we see the closing price on November 1st, which is tomorrow. The probability that is 45% that we see this 2 standard deviations above the price 5 days ago. And same thing for November 3rd, right? We've got a 37% probability. So bottom line is this is a likely time period here to see a pump in Bitcoin. What kind of prices can we expect? I tweeted out a little screenshot of the GAN fans feature. So let's go over how I came up with that. First, I turned on GAN fans. And GAN fans are measured and automatically drawn from the pivots that the machine learning algorithm identifies, okay? So as we squish the chart down, we can see the most recent GAN fan is the April 13th high here, April 14th actually, okay? And one of the things that you can do is, and you may not have discovered this feature, but if you mouse over the price index and then click and drag, you can basically change the aspect ratio of the chart. So if you look down here in the bottom right, you can see the aspect ratio is displayed, and you can see that change as I click and drag here. So what I'm doing really is I'm clicking and dragging to set the GAN fans so that they fit price very well. And at roughly this level, you can see a lot of nice hits here. You can see a hit on September 5th, catches that high, more or less catches the late September low, also catches this August low. And you can see how this GAN fan here down from the April 14th high kind of contains price during the summer. So I like the way this fits price. So what I can do now is I can, let's say I mouse over November 3rd, and if we were to pump up to this next channel up here, then we would see a price between roughly 70, the low 70s, and the low 80s, okay? And, you know, all of this depends in detail on how you draw your GAN fans. I could make that number lower by slightly redrawing the fans a little bit, and then I get a number a little bit lower here. I get like, or actually, no, when I draw it down like that, it ends up going a little higher. So if I were to drag it up like there, then it tags here, and then we end up with a price in the kind of 65 to 74 level. So bottom line is this is trading. This isn't rocket science. There's always going to be error bands and uncertainty, and it all depends on the assumptions that you use to build your forecast. So I wanted to use this opportunity to sort of highlight this GANFANS feature. I don't talk about it very much, but it's definitely worth using to help set your expectations and identify good exit points. So if we do get a good pump here, we could see anywhere from 65 to up to 80, depending on the assumptions that you use to draw your fans and your comfort level and how leveraged you are in the trade and whatever. So that's something that we will be using to guide our expectations going into the next few days. Hopefully we do see that a pump on that magnitude. Okay, so let's take a look at Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is confirming, in my opinion, the Bitcoin forecast. We've got a giant 89% probability of a pivot high here on November 2nd. So these tend to act as magnets to pull the price up. We can also see how price tends to behave around the yellow period. So we do tend to get some good pumps late yellow. So we've got one already here as we went from under 4,000 up to 4,400. So that's about 10% in a couple of days. Back in September, 28 up to 33, another good pump late in the yellow period, and also early September. But what tends to happen after yellow is we tend to see a period of consolidation. We saw some consolidation here. We see the pump slowing down in October. We see some consolidation here. We actually see price go down in July. So this is one of the ways I like to use these GAN waves, which are the yellow and blue stripes, is to look for patterns relative to the yellow and blue areas. So this would entirely make sense to see a high close to the end of this yellow period. That's kind of consistent with both Bitcoin and prior behavior in Ethereum. Okay, so let's take a look at indexes. We can start with the Qs. All right, so the Nasdaq, what catches my eye right away is this giant 94% probability of a pivot low on November 22nd. And this remains, I think, the anchor point of the forecast going forward. And this is something that I see kind of confirmed with the short-term waves. So short-term waves are cycles based on inner planets. And light blue here is making its highest high since the COVID low. And that is starting to turn down now. We're also coming into the blue on the GAN wave, which roughly coincides with weakness in the Nasdaq. So we can see blue here was weak, blue here was weak, blue here was weak, blue here was getting stronger, but just at the start of it was weak. So there's a pretty strong pattern of blue GAN waves aligning with weaker periods in the Qs. And then if you combine that with a declining light blue short-term wave coming down from a very high level, yeah, I think it's fair to expect weakness for the next few weeks in the Nasdaq that is forecast to end around November 22nd. Now, does that line up with the other indexes? Because I look to, whenever I look at one index, I like to look at all four of them, including IWM. So the Dow has a similar high probability of a pivot low, 48% probability of a pivot low on November 19th, but it also has a lot more up days forecast here. So the Dow is showing more strength than the Nasdaq. Let's take a look at spiders. Whoops, let's type SPY. Okay, the spider forecast was really quite quiet, but looking out in time, a couple things catch my eye. One is this big pump heading into a high probability pivot high at the end of January. And then the other is this cluster of pivot lows in March and April. So it looks like we're going to be in for a period of volatility coming up early in the first quarter of 2022 on the spiders. IWM kind of shows that trend the best. IWM, again, the short-term forecast is pretty quiet. But when you go out in time and look at, basically January through March, it's a giant magnet of high probability pivot lows sucking price down. So going to be an interesting first quarter for stocks, that's for sure. So I'll close out today's video with a quick review on the models page, and I have clicked on the activity rating for the next 1 to 5 trading days. There's some interesting looking opportunities here, one of which is Texas Instruments. So let's take a look at Texas Instruments, TXN. Now they just had earnings last week, and you can see that wasn't received very well by the market. So it sold off pretty heavily down to the 186 level. But look at this nice little cluster of up days coming up. Should be a good recovery week for Texas Instruments. And we can look at the high probability of a pivot high, 65% coming up on November 8th. So I love to see forecasts like this where we combine moves up with pivot highs, right? So those are really reinforcing each other and telling me that this is a tradable forecast. Okay, so that's Texas Instruments. Impala Platinum, IMPUY. So this is another one that's showing some opportunity on the downside. So we've got a nice cluster of down days coming up this week. So this could be a good sort of shorter term trade. The major opportunity here is in December with this big cluster of pivot lows. That looks like a good buying opportunity in the longer term. Okay, now what else do we want to look at here? I've played Plug Power in the past, so let's take one look at that before we wrap up today's call. So Plug Power has a pivot low coming up on November 2nd, and it's been surging lately. So if you're looking for an opportunity to get in, November 2nd might be a good time to do that. So that's Tuesday. And because there's some more forecast updates coming up after that. So this is an opportunity to kind of get in and avoid chasing on Plug Power. All right, so that's it for me for this week. I hope you're all doing well in your trading. Take care, and we'll talk again next week. Thank you.